What was your screeching halt moment?
When COVID happened, that's where I started going on my spiritual journey. I stopped drinking alcohol and I started doing a deep dive on myself. And that's when I started feeling the misalignment because I just kept unraveling parts of myself.
And once you went through that experience, you come out at the other side. What was that experience like?
I went down the path of all the lanes. I went to Peru, I sat with ayahuasca, and that blew the roof over my head in the sense of like what I thought life was and is and who I thought I was and is. And like so much of what my world was, it was like I couldn't even explain it. Like there was so much I had learned. When I'm in the metrics, I'm out of mission, right? Like
out of alignment.
I'm out of alignment because I'm really like, I stepped into this because I feel like it's a God-given gift and like a calling.
There's just so much humility and it's a moment of quietness that you need to be very comfortable with. The way we were living is not working anymore. Lana, thank you so much for being here.
I'm so excited to be here.
Honestly, my soul was on fire. I knew that you were going to be my first conversation because I knew that we were so aligned, which is funny because the podcast is named Aligned Authority.
I love it.
And I just felt that I knew I could have a very honest conversation and really be relaxed, no expectations. And we definitely need a countdown because we can speak for hours.
Yeah. Yes. I love honest conversations.
So Lana, anybody who's not familiar with Conscious Concierge, tell us about it.
Okay. So Conscious Concierge is a wellness consultancy that I started to help people figure out what is next or best for them in their mental, physical, or spiritual journey. There's so much out there right now in terms of healing and wellness. There's conventional medicine, there's functional medicine, there's naturopathic medicine, there's plant medicine, and that whole world. And so people are confused. They don't really understand what is for them. So I am a consultancy and also an advocate to help people figure out like what is the path for them, not just like what works for somebody else.
And what gaps did you actually see when you said, this is what I want to do? I mean, I figure that is actually a lot of trial and error. Did you wake up one day, you just knew exactly what you wanted to do?
Well, such a long story. Try to
we had time.
Let me see where to go. The biggest gap that I saw, and then I'll answer like why I, moved into that space. The biggest gap that I saw in wellness and healing, if you want to call it that, is that there are so many incredible practitioners and healers and doctors and coaches and guides and modalities and therapies. But if you talk to, somebody who's working with functional medicine, they're going to share with you why, they can work with you to solve your problem with functional medicine. If you talk to a shaman and you're talking about ayahuasca, they're going to tell you why, ayahuasca can help you with your issue. Same with a conventional doctor, and same with so many other things, somatic healing and energy healing and therapy. But that's confusing, right? Because then you're kind of in this space of, okay, but what do I try and what do I do? And so I felt like the gap was that there's a lot of options, but which one is for you? And advocating for people as an unbiased party, I didn't see anyone really doing that. And I felt like that was so needed because when you're healing from physical, mental health, or even spiritual, having a spiritual awakening, it's complicated and you can be really vulnerable. So I just felt like, who is the person I can go to understand all of this? Peptides, stem cells. I mean, it's endless. And then to go back into like why I stepped into that, because I was that person navigating it. And I went through my own journey for many, many years in, outside of the traditional systems and trying to understand how to heal from certain things and feeling confused and trying to understand, well, who's legit and who's qualified and what is this world of alternative health in general? So I really just became the service I was seeking. I always used to say, like, who's in charge here? Like, who do I talk to about this? Once you get out of the more conventional systems, it's like, well, who's like running the show here? And there was no one.
I laughed just because I went through my spiritual awakening. There was many times where I would have my hands on my hips and I would look around like, who's in charge? Obviously, like God was in charge, but I'm literally asking God, like, excuse me, who's in charge? Because I don't know. I had nobody to turn to during my spiritual awakening, for example.
And that can be debilitating too.
It was very debilitating.
Yes, that was in so many lanes when I was like navigating physical health. and the answers in the traditional world weren't coming. And then spiritual health, when I was like, what's happening? What am I feeling? You know, when you're having an awakening, it's like, and then mental health, you know, when I was told like you need to take SSRIs and that's the solution, there's so many avenues in which I realized like people need advocacy and they need support and someone who's unbiased and someone who's also like traversed those systems. So that's when my boyfriend was like, I think you have like an idea going here. Like it was his idea. He was like, I think you are filling a niche that doesn't exist. And I think you should step into that.
Was it easy for you to say, oh, you're right, I'm just going to do it? Or did you wrestle with yourself for a little bit?
I was already doing it in a sense. Like people would call me and be like, hey, you know, how did you clear your acne when you got off the birth control pill? And it was, you know, how did you do that naturally? And who did you go to? And what retreat do you think I should do when I'm feeling this way? And, you know, what is ayahuasca? Should I do it? Is it for me? That's safe. And he heard me on the phone like quite a bit because I'm a natural connector.
Of course. And was he saying, are you charging for this?
Well, he was also like, you're taking up a lot of time here. But I was working in my corporate media job. So, yeah, when I got laid off, because I did get laid off, it's a long story, but when I did, and I'm sure we'll maybe get into it,
Yes, we will.
When I did, 2 days later, he was like, you have a service you're providing. I'm seeing it day in and day out, and it's so needed, and people are calling you off the hook. So I think you should do it. So to answer your question, was it challenging? Yeah, it was a whole journey.
And speaking of journey, obviously the pendulum has swung quite aggressively. Our past life, for example, as to why you and I connect on such an amazing level. Talk to us about your background and the trenches and the highs and the lows, and obviously what makes your journey so amazing and inspiring, and why the credibility goes to your company right now.
Yeah. So, we come from the TV world in different ways.
That's like recovering TV people.
But as we always talk about, so many highs, so many amazing points. My background is in television advertising. And so I've been both on the buying side and the selling side. I worked at all the agencies, and one of the agencies I worked at was the inspiration for the show Mad Men, which was Universal McCann.
One of my favorite shows in life. I love that show.
It's a good one. It's very accurate to what the industry of ad sales looked like in the beginning. Even when I got into it, it was so lit.
Were you like the female Draper? I wouldn't expect anything less, Missy, from you.
Honestly, it was, for lack of better words, it was so lit. I mean, there was so much fun when I first got into it. I went to school for physical therapy, so it was so random how I ended up getting into media. But I always knew that I wanted to do something in entertainment, but I also loved health, which is so funny to fast forward now. So I got my degree in kinesiology. And when I got out of school, I interned in a hospital in New Jersey. And I was like, this isn't it. I want to be in the scene in New York and in like the fast lane and in the action. And I had a friend who was in media, and he was like, babe, you would love it. You would kill it. That's how I got into the buying side. And I represented brands like Bayer and Johnson & Johnson. So I would handle all of
the big boys.
The big boys.
Mm-hmm.
I handled their media buying. So, I mean, massive budgets, like hundreds of millions of dollars that we were handling as a team. And I started on the buying side, and I quickly realized that the sales side was where it was at. They were making more money. They showed up in suits, and, you know, the agency was more of like that. Like more casual, but it was so much fun. The agency side and the sales side. It was, I mean, in the beginning, like the upfronts, like the parties, the celebrity, like the talent.
Everything you see on television.
Yeah, it was like, you know, Mark Wahlberg would be at our event, and there were so many highs. It was so much fun. And at that time in my life, I really loved and was so aligned, because I loved TV and I loved partying and I loved going to dinner at Tao and Lavo, and it was the best. It was the best of times. And the sales side, going to work at the networks, I worked for Viacom first, so CMT and MTV and TV Land, and I worked for Comedy Central, like did some of the roast of Bruce Willis. And then I went to Univision. Univision, to be clear. And worked for a Spanish language TV network. And yeah, it was just there were so many amazing parts of it. And for a while, it was really, I felt like I was really living like the quintessential like New York City dream, really.
Mhm.
Sort of felt like.
So take us back to the moment where there was a screeching halt
Yeah.
to that, because I think everybody who's ever been in media, or we actually have a come to Jesus moment, or we see the light, or I just think it's the natural evolution of the entertainment world of reality, that other side of the coin. What was your screeching halt moment?
Yeah. So, like I said, super aligned for a while. When COVID happened, that was like the universal screeching halt for us all. But that was the first time I ever really like slowed down. I mean, I was living so fast, and um, obviously being in the house in New York City, and um, I went on my spiritual journey from there and went out to Colombia and South America.
And you're from Colombia, right?
No, I wish.
So cute.
I'm Italian and Jewish.
You're
Yeah.
Italian? Oh my goodness. I thought you were Colombian.
No, my boyfriend is. Yeah. No, I fell in love with the culture. I mean, my mom's Italian, my dad's Jewish, so you know,
Do you speak Spanish?
no, I have learned a lot.
Lana, claro que sí, hablas español.
Yo entiendo.
Ay, tan linda.
Yo entiendo mucho. But yeah, I lived in Colombia for 3 years, but to go back to the awakening and the misalignment. Well, yeah, I went out to Colombia for, it was supposed to be a month. I went through a breakup and COVID was happening.
Oh, I did too. I was going through a breakup too.
It's how it happens. It's how it happens. But I, everything slowed down. So I wasn't drinking. I wasn't distracted.
Mhm.
He was going through addiction, so he was in rehab, and so it became very serious very quickly. And really, you know, the options at the time, on that front were just, well, I guess I should just say, because that's a whole other rabbit hole. I'll say that I went out to Colombia, and that's where I started going on my spiritual journey. And I stopped drinking alcohol, and I started getting really, really doing a deep dive on myself. I had been to therapy on and off since I was a young kid, but this was the first time I really went really deep. And that's when I started feeling the misalignment, because I just kept unraveling parts of myself. And, you know, fast forward, I ended up out there for almost 3 years. So when I came back to New York and got the business suit back on and tried to go back to Univision, so much had happened in that time, and I became a different person. So I remember going back after being abroad, after so much of the spiritual journey, and going back to the office, back to New York, and I walked in Univision.
And what was the reason as to why you put the suit back on and you went back, for example? I know why I did it, but
Yeah. Well, I was working there through the whole duration of COVID, but from Colombia.
so you were able to do that.
I was able to do that.
Very lucky.
I was kind of moonlighting. So in the day, I was like the media person.
Media guru by day.
Yeah, I was like, but I was checked out. I was getting very checked out. And I was like a sponge learning. And I went down all the lanes that I now, help people with. So I started healing my body with functional medicine and coming off of, pharmaceuticals and things like that. I worked with ayahuasca and plant medicine, and that was the first thing I did. So that just blew the roof over my head.
And that's very interesting that you did ayahuasca first. Why ayahuasca first? That sounds like full throttle, like the first thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for functional medicine. That was like at the end.
It's like the entire menu. You just went for like the let's go for it, baby.
Yeah. Well, to be candid,
Please.
yeah. So this is what the rabbit hole I was going to get into, and then I was like, later. When I left New York, which was supposed to be for the month, and I was going through that process with my ex, and he was going through addiction, I was unraveling my mental health, and the options at the time were therapy and pharmaceuticals, like SSRIs and Xanax, and I was already exploring some of those options, right? Well, all of them, both of them.
Yeah.
But I had this intuitive feeling like there was more to the story, more to the story of why this is happening than I could really articulate. It was just like an inner knowing. And I don't know if you know Eric Nies from the industry.
Yes.
Okay, so he is my dearest friend. I grew up across the street from him. So his family and I are very close. And Eric, it's crazy because I called him from the office of MTV and I was like, what is going on? I've been to therapy since I was 6, you know, I've explored Xanax and all these things. And he had left Hollywood. And I just had him on my podcast to tell his story, but he had left and started working with ayahuasca for 20 years at that point. So he had left for a long time. So he was the person I called when I was like, I feel like there's more to the story here.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't really know what ayahuasca was, and I didn't know what he was really doing. I just knew he was spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
And he kept sharing with me, like, you're going through a process they can't really understand it in the traditional sense. How soon can you get to Peru? And I think it would be a good idea for you to sit with ayahuasca, because I'm feeling like the path of SSRIs is not where you want to go down, and there are more options. So I started researching and I was like really drawn to it, and it is a calling, as they say.
Of course.
I did start feeling that. And when I ended up going out to Colombia, I remembered he was in Peru. So I called him and I was like, I'm going to come in a month.
Tell me about the people around you. Did they understand what you were going through, your family? Was everybody looking at you like you had 5 heads? What was that process like? Just because I know how isolating that could be, and you don't know what to say. And when you actually say your truth, you feel like you're going to be ostracized, or
Yeah.
they're there.
It was, if I really like put myself back to that time, it was scary. I definitely, I had never had like mental health issues at that point, and I had seen a lot of people around me. But when my ex was going through that, I definitely understood what depression felt like, and anxiety and panic and OCD. So it was a level in which my mind went that I had never gone. So it was debilitating, and I was definitely scared. So my parents and people around me were too. But it was Eric that really made me feel like there was something more going on. Like there was something more to the story from a spiritual lens. So I did have.
Were you spiritual before? I mean, like, sometimes it could be such a leapfrog or very, very foreign as to what that could mean for someone.
I was, in the sense, Gabrielle Bernstein, I was reading her books, and I really related to her because she was like a New York City party girl, PR. Like, we come from similar worlds. So I definitely always ebbed and flowed out of like drama and like, things being like anxieties. And
that's what we crave the drama.
Yeah, it was like cute back then, but this was like a different level.
No, I get it. Like being messy was like a thing. Without being messy, I would feel bored, or I get it.
I turned 30. I thought I was going to marry him. Like, it was definitely really overwhelming. And what I was witnessing was scary. But yeah, I was really like well-resourced relationally. My mom had been in Al-Anon. She had dated someone with addiction. We've had some crazy stuff in our family. So it was like a world in which we could understand as a family. So I had really good resources. I had a coach, I had a therapist, I was working with Eric. Like, I had a lot of people to pull me in the right directions, but it was scary. And it was a time where I was, again, like, who do I talk? Why doesn't this feel resonant to just, take these pharmaceuticals and call it a day? Was the question I kept asking myself. But I now understand it was like an intuitive thing.
This episode is brought to you by HBU Media, creative and marketing agency, helping brands scale to their grandest desires. If you want more information, go to hbumediastudio.com. And once you went through that experience, you come out at the other side. What was that experience like?
So that's really where I went down the path of all the lanes. So I went to Peru, I sat with ayahuasca, and that blew the roof over my head, in the sense of like what I thought life was and is, and who I thought I was and is, and what like so much of what my world was, what we're doing here. Like, it was like I couldn't even explain it. Like, there was so much I had learn and seen, and the insights that came from that. So from there, I was like off to the races. I worked with as many energy healers and somatic healers, inner child, and functional medicine, naturopathic medicine, homeopathy. I tried all the different plant medicines, Bufo, Sananga. I worked with combo. I worked with, like there's so many.
Yeah.
So
You really did your research.
I really went down the path. I wanted to understand. Once I understood what Eric was saying, is like, this just didn't happen out of nowhere. This is happening for you. And this is like you're having an awakening of some kind. And a lot of us did in COVID. Once I understood that, I wanted to learn as much as possible. And I did. I learned, well, we're always learning, but I really went down the path of the alternative health world and trying to understand. And that I did all of that abroad, away from New York, away from family, to just really dive as deep as I possibly could into those spaces myself.
That's interesting that you said that you did everything abroad. So talk to me about integration back into the United States, right? Because I think everything is fine and dandy when you're doing the work, but I think the actual work begins when you're actually back into the real world. You're surrounded by your friends, family, and the old things that actually took us through that deep, dark hole. So what did integration look like, and how long did it take you to do that?
Yeah. It was a process. It is a process. It's way better now. But there was a time where I started feeling like, after 3 years of being out there and doing this deep work, that it was time to come back. I really fought it because it was my bubble. I called it the bubble. I felt safe there. I felt like a completely different person. I was such a party girl in New York. And that was my whole identity. Talk about identity.
Oof.
I loved being the single, like sexy party girl.
Yeah.
That's like what I thought I was,
Oh, I get it.
Yeah. And like the last one at the club, the one like always doing the most adventurous stuff. So that changed so much. And I was definitely like, how do I show up now back home in this version? But I knew it was the next stage of the journey was to do that. So that's why, to answer your question, I ended up going back to New York and going back to the office, because I was like, I felt like I was starting to feel misaligned in the job. I really didn't care anymore about media, about like TV advertising and all of that. But I knew I needed to like give it a last whirl. New York too. I felt like my time was done in New York, but I needed to come back because I felt like I had kind of like run away.
No, I get it. So you wanted to face, let's say, New York in this new identity, for example.
Christian, who's now my boyfriend, I called him from Colombia. He was my best friend. And when I spoke with him on the phone, he was like, he's like, I think you need to like really come back and really just give this like one more whirl in this new version of yourself and see if you're really done, and just kind of like reclaim your home, because I felt like I had kind of ran when my ex was dealing with all that. So when I came back, it was my way of being like, okay, if this is really not for me anymore, I'll feel it.
And how soon did you feel it? And you knew in your bones that you were done?
When I walked into the office the first day, I was like, oh my God. I was like, I remember sitting in a meeting and I was like,
you're like, welcome back, Lana. You're like, bye.
Oh my God. I was like, I went into my boss's office like a few days later and I was like, can I go back to being remote? And he's like, no. Like, what? You just moved back here. You just
came back here, darling.
Oh, he must have thought I was nuts. I was so overwhelmed. And yeah, we went to lunch as a team, and I remember we were drinking, like they were drinking and talking about like sports or something, and I was just like, I knew immediately, but I was like, okay, we're really gonna face this misalignment. And then integrating back into family and all of that was a separate process. But
oh my goodness, I know that we can talk about this forever. I love the title of this podcast episode because we're talking about performance versus presence.
Yeah.
And I feel like in our world of media, it's truly performance. And but you love it, right? It's like we love the spotlight, the people, the energy. And when you are connected with such an amazing project, obviously you're on a high. But talk to me about what that means for you, being performance versus presence and can both coexist in the same world. I mean, right now we're performing.
Yeah.
I mean, but we're
Ish.
right? But we're right, but it's
I'm keeping it probably too real, but
no, there's no such thing as keeping it too real. I believe that. I think we definitely need, and we'll talk about what this world needs, but can those two things live at once, performance versus presence, or is it completely two sides of the coin?
Yeah, to me, performance, when I'm thinking of performance, I'm thinking of metrics.
Mm.
And when I was
like a good ad girl.
yeah, I'm like, what's the CPM and the impressions on that? But no, it's like I think of performance from that world in TV and media as like I was always thinking of, how much is my salary? What is my title? The definitely like being in the metrics of things. And that carried into entrepreneurship because I basically then started feeling like, okay, I shifted into this role, but now it's like, how many followers, how many podcast episodes, how many women in the community. And I caught myself bringing performance in my version of performance into this world. And my partner, Christian, also reminded me a lot that like it's a lot of unlearning about.
I literally was about to ask you that. Like, what parts of you did you have to unlearn and to feel happy, right? Because when we start to unlearn, I feel like you're like a baby deer.
I feel like the biggest thing I've had to unlearn is this obsession with getting to a destination. So I think, my time in New York, those 10 years, I think about it a lot as like the I'll be happy when chapter. I mean, I was having so much fun, but there's always something that's like, it was either the company, like the network I wanted to be at, or the title.
What network did you want to be at?
Well, I did want to work at Viacom. That was a dream of mine.
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to be at Viacom. But this is my point. Like, I accomplished that. And then it's like the salary.
On to the next.
Yeah.
Now what? What you got from me?
Yeah. It's like I dreamed of the salary, got that. Then the title, got that. Then the apartment on the water, got that. Like, it was always something. And I started bringing that into this work. This work, for me, is all about being present, and it's all about really just being authentic. And also I feel that I'm in mission. Like I feel like I'm living in what I'm here to do for this chapter, at least. So like I feel like it's a completely different space. And of course we want to do well and we want the metrics, but it's not why I'm doing it. So unlearning the constant, like, I'll be happy when, concierge has this many clients or
community members.
And the I'll be happy when loop just being really, really visible, like being very aware of it. And so, yeah, the unlearning has been a process of realizing this is a completely different experience.
But you're doing so well, though.
Thank you.
So proud to see what you're building just grow into such a beautiful, organic, living and breathing community. And just from like this side, obviously, like when we're like in it, you're like in the hustle, you're like in the trenches. Am I doing well? But just, not just as a friend, but just somebody as like, I see you clearly.
Thank you.
And the work you're doing, like you're changing the world.
Those are the metrics, right? Like those are the important metrics.
And like, what's the ROI?
Yeah, it's like my boyfriend always says, like, it's like Krista, who's a mentor, Krista Williams, she's a mentor of mine, a friend, and she at her retreat recently, she's like, when I'm in the metrics, I'm out of mission, right? Like
out of alignment.
I'm out of alignment because I'm really like, I stepped into this because I feel like it's a God-given gift and like a calling.
It's like, God, what's the ROI?
Yeah, he's like, the fact that you literally changed this person's life. So when I get messages like that and I see it, I realize that I am living in that space.
And it's so interesting because it's such a quiet moment, right? When somebody calls you, they share their story or a text, you're like, versus the life that we lived before. It was so very loud.
Yeah.
The accolade,
Oh,
and
yeah.
there's just so much humility, and it's a moment of quietness that you need to be very comfortable with.
Yeah, it's an identity shift for sure. And I think, yeah, there's so much to uncover, but I do feel like there's a lot of performance happening in the wellness world.
Yes, ma'am. And yeah, and talk to me about that, because obviously now you're in the space that maybe we think, or obviously from outsider looking in, you're like, okay, now you find your calling. Now you necessarily don't need to perform,
Mm-hmm.
but you do. Is it the same tap dance just wrapped up in a different outfit? I mean, that sounds like kind of aggressive, but commercially, when I look at it now, obviously now we have like the wellness industry is going to turn into $1 trillion industry. Like
Yeah.
now everything is tied to
Yeah.
a wellness membership, luxurious vibe.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, because now the pendulum really swung from like
Yeah.
the Soho houses of the world to
Yes.
that's what I'm seeing.
Yes.
And what's your opinion about all of that?
Yeah, definitely have opinions. I think in terms of healing and wellness, we are definitely seeing a lot of trendiness.
But it's a need, because we're always
a need
starving for life,
for sure.
sustenance.
But there's definitely something happening where, because healing and wellness has become so
Is that synonymous, healing and wellness?
I oscillate between the words because they mean different things to different people. So I think wellness can be like biohacking, but that's very different than healing from.
Oh, absolutely.
So I kind of cover both, because some people, come to me and they want to like optimize their body, and some people and most people are coming for more of like that healing.
No, but I love that we're talking about it, because, for example, if somebody wants to talk to you about peptides, now we see peptides everywhere.
Yeah, it's trendy.
Can they come to you regarding their peptides and what the protocol is going to be?
Yeah.
And if they want to, they're interested about healing their soul.
Yeah, that's why it's dynamic. And I don't niche down, because I do feel that what someone needs is so, like, it can be so vast, and it depends on where they're at. So I get really clear on asking them questions to be able to gauge, like, what I think I could recommend best. But also, aside from just recommending, there's the biggest thing that I really felt strong about was making sure people are connected to legitimate people in this work. There's no regulations, so it can be consistent.
I'm afraid of that, the fact that there's no regulation, and
which is good and bad. Yeah. So when one of the things I feel like I'm playing a role in is helping people to be connected to things that.
So you're the guide.
Well, I mean, I
look at you as the guide.
I know.
I Lana, guide me.
I know. Well, all I really try to do is, have vetted and reputable and experienced people to recommend. But it's much more than a referral service, because what I find is at the core of it is everyone here on earth has a different journey and a different blueprint for what they're doing here. So what is going to work for them is entirely different.
Absolutely.
So what I feel I'm doing is basically just helping them understand how to find resonance in themselves, like how to find resonance in these options. Because yes, I'm recommending, and it's like a directory and a service, but from there, it's like helping people to understand, what does resonance feel like?
Yes.
So they can determine, because I don't want to claim that I'm the one that's like giving you the keys to the castle.
No, I get it. Let's talk about the word resonance. I've been using it often, and many people ask me what that means. But I think in this context, it's very important, because we're oscillating between resonance and actually like feeling in the real world, right? So what does that mean for somebody?
For me, like, resonance means it's how would I, like, this is a good question.
Because I've been using it a lot, because I'm on, like right now, right? On such a mission. I want to be aligned. My vibration is high. And sometimes I get into like maybe like my woo cycle, right? This woo that my friends and family can understand, because sometimes I'm just like, woo, just like a little fairy sometimes. But when I'm like corporate girly, I'm in, I'm making decisions and making hard decisions, I probably wouldn't use the word resonance, because people are not going to understand that word. But I think, where does that word lie in the real world? and in the spiritual world?
It's an interesting question. Resonance is when you feel truth within your body, really.
That's great. I like that.
That's how I see it. So, for example, when someone comes to
Like
me,
like energy.
yeah, like it's an energetic yes in your
Yes.
body. Like when someone comes to me for a consult and they're like, I don't know what I need. I kind of want to explore this or that, or they don't know and I feel this way. I'm going to give recommendations based on what I'm hearing, but I'm going to give them options and then say to them, what feels resonant for you after you meet with them? So they can determine what is resonant. And then we can work on what that even means if they don't really know. I definitely think there's this fine line of showcasing your work, and then you see like Kundalini healers kind of like healing in Kundalini energy in real time, like on their Instagram. And so it's a fine line of like,
This feels so personal when I see that.
yeah, it's tough because it's like I do feel like we're in an interesting time where we want to be able to like showcase our work,
Swipe up.
but we also like
I get it. Yeah.
but we also I think we get to ask ourselves, myself included, the hard questions of like, who is this for? Is this for me or is this for them? Is this for, is this a calling, or am I doing this because I feel like I can make money from it? I think those are the hard hitting questions I sit with myself with. And I've been seeing other conversations happening about now that this is trendy and people need this, now we're in a space where there is a performative nature to it. And so that's how I see it, because I don't ever feel like I was like performing a ton in media. I was always like who I was.
Of course, yes.
But what I see when I hear the word performance is more so the trendiness that's happening right now with wellness and healing, for sure.
And what advice would you give to anybody where they don't know where to start? Obviously, go to Conscious Concierge.
Yeah.
I'll plug you, girl, all day. I'm here all day.
Yeah.
Like, what would you tell someone to? I mean, like, it's so overwhelming for me right now that I'm just like, it feels like everybody is performing. Obviously, we know that we're in need of something more, something that feels healthy. The way we were living is not working anymore.
That's what it is. The way we're living is not working anymore. We are entering an age where a lot of people are waking up. And so that can be disorienting. And people are definitely looking to feel better. We're dealing with a lot of physical health issues, chronic illness. We're dealing with a lot of mental health issues. We're dealing with a lot of spiritual health crises right now. So that can be disorienting. It can be exciting to know there's options out there. But what happens is it can become confusing or overwhelming pretty quickly when you're like, do I need stem cells, peptides? Do I need exosomes? Should I work with a therapist, a coach? Should I go to retreat? Should I sit with ayahuasca? Should I work with a functional? Should I go on a detox? It's endless right now.
Yeah.
So I really feel for people. And again, this is why I started this. But I think a good step is really first understanding, like, do you know how to feel into resonance in your body? And to like simplify that, I would say we don't necessarily always need more information and more tips and tricks on Instagram. I think we get to determine first, do we know how to discern what is resonant for us? Do we know what that means? Then we can have an easier time kind of going through the modalities. But someone like myself is here for that if someone doesn't know necessarily like how to determine that, or they feel just too overwhelmed.
I love that. I mean, we definitely need a lot of guidance now in this world more than ever. And now you talk to me about community, right? It's like, it's amazing because like I've seen your growth into community. How did that come about? Because we were talking before, I think the new currency is community, which that's literally where my heart lies, working with women and being surrounded by women. And I would have never thought that because I've been in a world full of men. I was in sports media, I've been in technology, and just like now at this side, my 40s, all I crave is to be around amazing women healing and growing and changing the world. I would have never thought that identity would have been me now, which is wild.
Yeah.
And now
identity, we could go on.
I know, but I feel I feel like there's a mirror to you right there because you are surrounded by these amazing women's circles. And how did that come to be?
Yeah. So I started a women's group called Her Conscious Collective. Andrea is a part of it. And it came about because one-on-one work is great, right? Like when we work with someone one-on-one for, mental, physical, or spiritual health, it's amazing. But being in community with women doing that work is a life hack because I am surrounded. My personal network is healers and practitioners and all of that, but not everyone's is. So it becomes a lifeline. Like when you're not surrounded by those conversations, it's so important to stay plugged into them because like it's a life hack to be around women that are doing that kind of work. And I think, we go to these peak experiences, whether it be ayahuasca or a retreat or working with a therapist. But then the actual implementation of it, the integration of
I love
it.
that you called it a peak experience.
Yeah.
Right? Because the interaction and where life happens is in the in between.
It's in between, yeah. And I think right now we've done a lot of peak experiences the last few years. A lot of us have really gone ham on like that process. And now I think we're entering a time of integration and true implementation of what we've learned spiritually. And I think that's in the day-to-day life. So for me, I just felt like it would be really helpful to have a place where women can come as like a home base and have these conversations, like every month we have a different topic and it's identity to extremism and health and wellness to just deeper conversations where we're all in it together. And I think one thing that you'd be surprised about with community is you learn from everyone there. So that's the difference of one-on-one versus community is you're learning by way of other people's experiences. And even if you think, and I went through this because we all go through the spiritual ego for sure,
Oh, yes.
where you think you're better than everyone because you're on the journey, but you'd be surprised. I mean, even someone who you think is like less time on the wellness or healing or spiritual journey, you can learn so much from them because we're all equal. We all have varying levels of consciousness and awareness, and so we can always learn from each other, and that's the beauty of community.
And tell me about the future of Conscious Concierge. What are you envisioning?
Yeah.
For yourself personally and for your company.
So for Conscious Concierge right now, we have the consults, which is like the bread and butter of helping people with those different lanes and with, figuring out what's resonant for them. The podcast, Conscious Conversations, and inviting people into these different lanes so they can discern what is best for them. And then the community. But in a nutshell, like what I hope to be and where I hope this goes and what I see for the future is I just want to continue to bring up conversations and have, ask the harder questions and just really invite people into those processes, and like I think I really want the impact to be that we're all here for a completely different reason. So really figuring out like what is your path and what are you doing here on this planet in Earth School and like what is your journey? And I think
School.
yeah, I think I just want to continue to have conversations that I think are not being had necessarily in the mainstream and bring that forward and have a space where people can understand themselves a little more.
You know what I love about what you're doing and why I wanted this to be the first interview? Because here at the podcast, we talk about modern leadership. I truly feel like what you're doing is modern leadership. It's not a boardroom.
Yeah.
Right? You're not surrounded by all these men.
Yeah.
Although we love our male allies.
Love them. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think what's beautiful about what you're doing is that I see this to be modern leadership.
Thank you. Yeah,
And although, like I said, of course it is hard because like, we were talking about the silent moments. We're not in a conference room. This worked. It didn't work. God, what's the ROI? Like all of these intangibles. And a lot of people may not understand it. Right. And what I feel what's interesting about modern leadership is also the emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And I just think with what you are building, it's really incredible. And talk to me about what keeps you up at night with Conscious Concierge.
I mean, what keeps me up at night from a personal perspective is different than like I'm trying to think of how I want to tell me more about like what you mean by the question, maybe.
I mean, I think going on, let's say this modern leadership journey, we talk about the entrepreneurship aspect. Obviously, when we're leading and it feels very aligned, it could be lonely. It could be there are lulls in finances. And I mean, that's why not everybody can be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
all of the above, like
Yeah.
of knowing like, yes, I don't know what the income stream is going to be the next 3 months, but then all of a sudden you get a killer client, you're like celebrating for the next 3 days.
Yeah.
There's just so many aspects of to what can keep you up at night, right? Or what is the hill that you're going to die on, that no matter what people say.
Okay, so many ways to answer that.
I know, however
Yeah.
you want.
Well, yeah, I think what keeps me up at night is like leaving media, as you know, like leaving corporate. It was terrifying. I got laid off, but I could have easily gone back and just got a different job in the business.
Of
The
course.
company was dissolving because I went to a startup TV network. But it was terrifying to decide to build something. And so sometimes what keeps me up at night is, if I'm being really honest, is like so much what I've given up from a stability perspective in that world. And what puts me to sleep and eases my mind is like that I know this is something much bigger moving through me. It's much bigger than myself. And I've gone through many ego deaths and a lot of humility and humbling to understand that and to come from this space from a much different perspective than maybe when I first started, which is like, I know all these things and I want to share them. And now I trust that where this is leading me is something that's much more divine. So that's that. And the hill I'll die on, though, is just that there's a lot of really smart people and a lot of really educated people, a lot of experienced people that really believe their way is the way.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's medicine or that's plant medicine or that's functional medicine or biohacking or therapy, a lot of people believe their ideology, their religion is the way. And we see it a ton with religion and ideologies. The hill I'll die on is that everyone's here for a completely different reason. And it is only for them to unravel. It's like this cosmic mystery. We're all here and we don't know why. We forget it. We're here to remember. So no one, not me, nobody can tell you what is your path. The best mentors and guides will mirror back to you so that you can figure out that for yourself. And I think we live in a world right now in healing and wellness and all the things where people will tell you, this is the truth and this is the way and this is the answer. And it's just not. It's only you know. So that hill I will happily die on.
And you answered the question perfectly. Lana, thank you so much for this conversation. Like I said, you are the epitome of modern leadership and why I wanted you to be my first guest. You are changing the world, and that is your ROI.